You love a Newzroom Prime. It's a pleasure to have you with us tonight. I'm Kathy Motlahlana. A briefing by embattled Congress of the People leader Mosiuoa Lekota descended into chaos this morning. Disgruntled members disrupted the event, arguing that Lekota has no right to address the media, given his recent suspension. For more on the story, we're joined by Mbali Takalani, who was there as it all unfolded. Before we get to Mbali, here's a quick reminder of those scenes that played themselves out earlier today.
We are here at the telecom to assist you. I don't want this boy to come here.
This guy must go with the police one. No, guys, these guys couldn't discuss about this million. Let them go. He's not supposed to be here.
Solve the problem. We are not going to be led by thugs, unfortunately.
What has happened here, we understand that he's just asked to leave the venue. It's really not been taken at this particular point by police, but we're going to find out what exactly is happening. This is one of the men that had stormed into this particular venue that had...
Well, Mbali, when one takes a close look at the reaction by the suspended COPE leader, Mosiuoa Lekota, as all of this was unfolding, he seemed just as surprised as the rest of the country that were tuned in at that moment.
Certainly, Kathy. He was surprised, but at the same time, very calm. And you'd remember, while we saw the events that played out today at that press briefing, just on Monday, we saw the faction of COPE's Deputy President, Willie Madisha, as well as its spokesperson, Dennis Bloem, then saying that they held a meeting, a CNC meeting on Sunday, and that meeting had resolved that Terra Lekota needs to be suspended, and they then suspended him, saying that, of course, because of his ill health, and also saying that he is sowing divisions within the party and also running a parallel structure. But, of course, this is why COPE finds itself here. And also, Kathy, this is really nothing new. Power battles within COPE are really well documented right from the beginning and the inception of this party. But let's take a listen to what Lekota had to say by those calling for him to be removed as party president.
No individual who is not acting as part of the Congress National Committee can dismiss either myself or any member of the organization. The only structure that has authority to do that is the Congress National Committee. I cannot be suspended by 3 individuals walking the streets. I can be suspended by the Congress, the majority of the Congress National Committee, in a sitting of its meeting. Now, I don't think, therefore, I'm not interested in all these stories that I'm suspended and then this is that and so on. Who suspended me? Where was that meeting held? Where are the minutes of this thing? And so on and so on. All of that it makes no sense whatsoever to talk about suspending. Well, there's nothing that prevents me from making myself available. If the party wants me to do that, there's nothing that's going to prevent me.
All right, Mbali, we'll continue in a moment. Let me invite into the conversation the Gauteng COPE youth leader, Takalani Raidani. Good evening, Takalani. Thanks for your time tonight. Now, you are one of the individuals at that media briefing who threw the first punches. Tell us why.
Good evening and good evening to the viewers. A little bit of correction. I didn't throw any punch. during the day. However, we went into that meeting trying to talk to those people who were there. However, they decided to fight. If you check all the clips that were flowing around the social medias during the day, you can also see that personally, I didn't touch anybody of them. However, we were not there for what happened, which now by this time I want to say to all the supporters and all South African citizens who love and cherish COPE. We want to apologize for that activity that happened there. Unfortunately, it was just because of, I like to call it the Mickey Mouse leadership that was elected at the round level somewhere in Free State by one person. So we were not there to fight. We were there to talk to them. However, we tried. When we were trying to talk to them, that's when they decided to do what they did. And we didn't...
Takalani, why have that conversation during what you would have understood to have been a live media briefing? Why not have that conversation with them before or even after the briefing?
To be honest with you, I'm in youth movement. And when we were told about this development of suspending the president, obviously we will want to know why. And we were told why. And we go dig deeper into this matter to say, then what is it that we must do? And then we accepted the resignation, the suspension of the president, because what he did was wrong. To call the meeting in Free State and go there and elect his friends to be the members of the CNC, whereas the members of the CNC who were supposed to be in that meeting were not invited. Only CNC members who were in that meeting on the 20th of August in Free State were only two. How can two people decide to elect members of the CNC? And Mr. Lekota was suspended by the members of CNC. The meeting was held on Sunday, the past Sunday, and the decision was taken because he broke the Constitution. We can't be led by the person who don't want to abide by the Constitution of the party.
But surely, just because you don't agree with his position around this suspension, it doesn't mean that you have the right to necessarily silence him. Those that were in the Free State over the weekend held their own briefing. In fact, it's part of what we were able to report on Sunday night. And nobody disrupted that meeting. So do you think what you did was justified?
What we did there, that's the only place where they can see where we mean business. We don't want manga business.
But do you think that it was justified?
It was. If they gave themselves time as leaders, they are calling themselves, to listen to what we want to say and open the gate for other Congress of the People members who were locked outside the gate to come in. We were not going to see what we have seen. All
right. I'm going to ask you to pause it there, Takalani. Mbali, you were in the room as all of this unfolded. Of course, Mr. Raidani is one of those that we see in picture being told, who is, of course, trying to be escorted by the police. And we have the other members of COPE saying that he needs to be arrested for this fight having broken out in the way that it did. What did you see?
That's certainly right, Kathy, of course. But I must say that our camera person, Raidani, was actually very helpful, saying that when he actually went outside to take a call during that press briefing, he then saw some sort of chaos outside. He was saying that there were some members of COPE who were prevented from actually coming inside, saying that they needed to be briefed before that press briefing took place. Then onwards, we then saw a number of people just barging in and mics flying, and then fists then started to fly, Kathy. So out of nowhere, we saw just chaos inside that press briefing. Many of us really shocked. Many of us did not even expect such to happen. I mean, Kathy, I've covered a number of press briefings, and this is something that I've never, ever witnessed in my life, especially, for a political party, especially for a political party that's also trying to renew itself. I mean, we saw then Tata Lekota also equally shocked and dismayed by what happened. But at the same time, Kathy, the factions are crystal clear. They're clear as day that really the factions that we saw play itself out during 2009 continue to play itself out in COPE till this day.
Takalani, let me bring you back in here then. So given just the account that was seen by our own team who was covering this media conference, it seems that you came to this media briefing with the intention of creating chaos.
Not at all. There was.
Well, you weren't invited in. You weren't being allowed inside. It was a live briefing, and yet you insisted on disrupting it. What did you think the outcome outside of chaos was going to be? And that in no way justifies the violence that has taken place. But even if there was no violence, it would have been a chaotic briefing nonetheless.
Let me tell you something. Like I said, we were walking in with a security guard inside. Before we can get there, they already knew that there are people who are working in. And they started to attack us from the outside. That's where you saw when we were going in, we were like barging in. It's because they were fighting us from the outside. And we were not fighting.
But why were you insisting on gaining access to a briefing that you were clearly not invited to?
How can somebody who is suspended be addressing the media in the name of the organization?
At this point, Takalani, at this point, you have Dennis Bloom, you have Willie Madisha, and another third official of COPE that are also said to be suspended. So it's a very difficult one to draw because effectively, if we look at it, many of the senior leaders of the organization are now suspended, depending on who it is that you're talking to.
Let me tell you something. I'm laughing because the leader just want to play the back-to-back suspension. However, he cannot suspend anybody alone. Who is he suspending? Comrade Madisha, Comrade Dennis Bloom, and Comrade Ntleko? Who is he suspending them with? Because the people who must suspend those comrades is the CNC. And the CNC, it's him and them. So who is he suspending them with? So then that's why I'm saying when they were doing the media statement, they said we are suspending him because he is dividing the party. He is going all around forming parallel structures in Congress of the People, and that's what we are refusing. We are saying no, we don't want this. We are in a process of rebuilding this organization. We can't be adding other things that will destroy us. You can agree with me with this one. If you are in a process of rebuilding your own house, obviously there will be some walls, unwanted walls, that must be demolished.
Takalani, I think the one thing that I will agree with you on is that this entire debacle is completely laughable. If you look at COPE, 2019, they were able to get 47,461 votes. That's 0.27% of the vote in the national election. This is something that your organization, quite frankly, cannot afford at this point. You will be a non-entity by the next time we get to another national election at the rate you're going.
If I'm to say something to you, the organization, when it started, we had about 37 seats. So when we had 37 seats at the National Assembly, now we are back to two seats, which is a very shameful, with the same leadership that they are still fighting that they want to be there. And we are saying, no, it's time we rebuild this party. And please move. We need fresh blood. We need fresh ideas so that we can rebuild this organization. There are a lot of people who want to join Congress of the People, but they can't join it in this manner because they don't want the leadership, the current leadership, that we are trying to say to them, please excuse us.
All right, Takalani, we're going to have to leave it there. One can only wish you guys the best, especially if the aim is to try and rebuild the organization. Mbali, any clarity then on what the status of these suspensions is? Which ones are valid, which ones are not? Should we even really care is perhaps one of the big issues too.
Kathy, we were all equally confused and still confused. We still don't know which real cope it is, in fact. I mean, I asked the question around, which cope must we take seriously? So for now, they need to get their house in order so that, the nation can essentially take them seriously. And because this is a party that is going to be contesting the 2024 elections. And just like how you've highlighted, Kathy, that they only have 2 seats in Parliament, and they've got a lot of work to do now in terms of how they will, try and woo those voters in their favor, especially after, that chaotic mess we saw at that press briefing.
Mbali Tatali, we'll leave it there for tonight.